Hi, parents. Kirk Jones, high school pastor here, January the 8th, 2012, giving you the weekend recap. Um, this Sunday we talked about Noah's Ark, Genesis chapter 6. We're still in the, we actually just recently started the Genesis series, so we'll probably be in it for a while. Talked about Noah's Ark and related it to how much do you trust God? How strongly do you trust God? So, three questions we asked. The first one was, will you do what he says? So if God came to you and said, I want you to build this ark, and he had this ridiculous proposal, what would you do with that? Would you start building an ark right away, or would you sit down and wonder what's going on? And the solution to that is to just let God be God. And probably for Noah, that proposal did sound completely ridiculous. But now we can look back and say, wow, that was, God knew exactly what he was doing. The second question was, will you believe what he says? And we talked about the covenant that God gave us, the rainbow in the sky, that he would never flood the earth again. However, when the people were building the Tower of Babel, the Bible tells us instead of using stones, they used baked bricks and tar. And they were basically waterproofing the Tower of Babel, because God had said, hey, I'm never going to flood the earth again, but just in case, we better make sure our giant tower is waterproof. So the question is, will you believe what he says? And we talked about letting Jesus be Jesus and how strong his case is that he is who he claimed to be. And finally, we talked about, will you repeat what he says? And we talked about how easy it would have been in the time of Genesis for you to strike up a conversation about God, because everyone was aware of his existence. It wasn't, does God exist? It was, do you follow God? And then we had the scattering geographically of people at the Tower of Babel. Now we've got not just geographical boundaries, but we've got historical, cultural, social, religious boundaries and barriers, all these things that make sharing the gospel message that much more difficult. And the solution there is to let the Holy Spirit be the Holy Spirit. And God knew that back in the time of Genesis, it probably wasn't that difficult to strike up a conversation about God, but they didn't have access to the Holy Spirit. And now that things are a lot more difficult, we do. We talked about serve the city and how that's an opportunity to share Jesus with other people. And we just talked about the structure of Wednesday nights and how they are high energy. We do play games. We do have free pizza. And the whole point is for people who wouldn't typically come to church to come and possibly get suckered into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I got to share my own story about how I wound up at church, not because of a great message or anything like that, but because I got suckered into going there. So hope that helps. Hope that strikes up some great conversations. And I will see you next week.